Update Reddit. Doctors of Reddit, what is your "how the hell are you even alive right now" story? We have a patient we see at our hospital monthly. Young guy, early 20s, absolute turd to take care of. He has diabetes and essentially refuses to take his insulin. He comes in every time with diabetic ketoacidosis, which is essentially your body going into a coma-like state due to your blood pH becoming acidotic and very elevated sugars. The impressive part isn't that he survives this, most people do. It's that this is a recurring event every month, and each time someone manages to find him, get him to the hospital. If he was ever alone when this occurred and no one found him in a timely fashion, he'd be toast. Been seeing him regularly at the hospital for the last 18 months I've been here. Do you and you, breakdance fighting work, live in the same place? My friend's father is an orthopedic surgeon, and he told us a story that once a boyfriend and girlfriend came in because they tried an in-home abortion. By running her pelvis over with a car. Abortion worked, but I hope they actually never reproduce. What the fucking fick. Not a doc, but I'm a paramedic. I had a patient shot 6 times in the chest with a 9mm at point-blank range. Homie was still yelling at the other dude, now in custody, how he was gonna get out of the hospital and find him. I was pretty dumbfounded at how lucky this bastard was, considering most people don't yell after 6 shots in the chest. Since you didn't specify how long they stayed alive. In med school I had a patient who got shot in the head a couple blocks away from the hospital. He was still able to talk for a few minutes after arrival, but it was clearly not a survivable injury. I stayed with him as his brain started to swell. I remember the moment his eyes became dull and his speech slurred to a stop. I saw a guy who got shot 9 times, 3 of which were in the neck. Nothing important got hit, so we just cleaned out the wounds, packed and covered them, and that was it. There was a guy who was found by his roommate unconscious. Had to be resuscitated. Was barely responsive to painful stimuli. Blood pH was 6.6. Now normal blood pH is between 7.35 to 7.5, and remember pH is a logarithmic scale, typically 6.8 is not considered compatible with life. He ended up waking up and following commands for a bit. Just crazy. Following commands for a bit. Then what? Did he survive or eventually die from it? Not a doctor, friend who's a crime scene tech. They apparently tell this story to police now to remind them that unless somebody is 100% utterly dead, like head 20 meters from body, call the ambulance. Police rock up to an address of a couple of druggies. Enter and it's a mess. Mattress at the center of the living room floor and blood everywhere. Cannot reach the mattress without stepping in it. Spray on the walls and ceiling. 2 bodies on the mattress, both covered in blood. Cops have to go round and enter through the back door just to get near them without F up the scene. Cops check, but no signs of life. Call detectives who arrive and start investigating the scene. About 1 hour into it and one of the bodies takes a deep breath and starts to move. For some reason no one decides to shoot what was obviously a zombie. Turns out they got high and decided to end it all. Only one didn't succeed and just had a really strong nap. And that's why police in my state can't issue life extinct certificates unless they are looking at a 3-year-old skeleton. Well Phil, I think that this person is dead. We can't tell for sure Bob, that skeleton is only 2.5 years old. We have a homeless patient right now with active endocarditis, end-stage renal disease on dialysis, HIV, and a carcinoid tumor. Totally non-compliant with antibiotics even though he has a PICC line and shows up for dialysis once a week maximum. Never got chemo or surgery for the cancer. Constantly shows up to the ED looking for pain meds or in hypertensive emergency. After treatment he just walks out again. Gomers don't die. It's like all the walls on a house are collapsing inwards at once, so at a certain point they begin to support each other and the house won't finish collapsing. Vet here. I had a patient come in recently with a PCV, packed cell volume, basically how many red blood cells you have, of 12%. Super anemic. The normal range is about 35 to 55% and we tend to transfuse once it hits 20% as the animal should be struggling. Patient was walking around, wagging tail and everything. Just a little pale. Golden retriever? Not a doctor, but when I was 18, my mom was at a stoplight when she was rear-ended by a diesel truck going 60. Her back was broken and her brain was bleeding. At the hospital, her kidneys started to fail, she had internal bleeding, and her blood pressure was in the 20s. The doctor told us these facts and told us to say goodbye. A priest was there and offered her last rites. The next day she was stabilized and I can remember the doctor looking at her like, WTF? I can't even imagine what she was going through. Glad she's okay. How did the driver react to all this? 1. Opioid addict who was found after several hours in a sewage canal. He was in his 50s, barely breathing, had a broken femur but after naloxone he miraculously recovered enough to actually try escaping the ER. He walked to the entrance, walked with a broken femur. 2. A 45-years-old painter, hypertensive, high blood pressure, diabetic heavy smoker of 30 years with a history of multiple heart attacks, 2 which were triple vessel. Was casually chain smoking in front of me as he explained his history. 3. The Pakistani politician Imran Khan's fall from a 10 to 12 meters height, on his back and head at the age of 60. Well, this story has happened somewhere around the 70s to my uncle and even made it to the newspaper. My uncle was driving on a scooter one afternoon on a country road when he was hit heavily by a car from the back. He fell off the scooter, flew through the windshield of the car and came to an halt on the backseat. The driver of the car stepped on the brake so that he flew from the backseat again through the windshield and ended lying on the road. Except from some bruises he was unharmed. When the police came both my uncle and the driver of the car told the same story, which they didn't believed in the first place. However, my uncle had lost a shoe in the back of the car, so finally also the police got convinced. My grandma cut out the article from the newspaper and it is still in a frame in her living room. Smiley face. My brother's girlfriend is a medical student. On her second year she had a course on nursing. She had to help examine a woman who came for chest pain. She noticed an awful smell from the woman. The woman had stage 4 breast cancer, treated herself with homeopathy and her boobs were rotting. My dad had a massive heart attack a few years ago. He proceeded to drive around for several hours disoriented and confused to where the hospital was. He went to a closed fire station and drove around the city for who knows how long. He had a complete 100% blockage in his left anterior descending artery. They call it the widow maker. Blessed to still have my old man around, to say the least. Not a medical doctor, but I am almost 1/8 of my way through optometry school. So, you're almost done with your first semester at optometry school. Not a doctor. Was a patient. Had 5 different specialist teams come and try and figure out what had happened. One night I was at my friend's house and my neck started feeling all crazy. We were drinking and I powered through it. At about 6 a.m. I woke up cold as F and just took the liberty of taking a bath to warm up. Go home, still feel like S. But I write that off to too much alcohol. A day more goes by, I think I might have pneumonia. This was before Obamacare. It actually got passed while I was in the hospital, so I figure that I can tough pneumonia out. Then my neck and back start hurting. My symptoms are pretty close to bacterial meningitis, but not exactly right. In a fever haze I Facebook not call a friend or do something reasonable, IF Facebook that I might need someone to take me to the hospital. I tell them that I think I have pneumonia. They x-ray my lungs, I don't. She runs me through the meningitis mobility tests. I don't have meningitis. She asks me about my medical history. I tell her I've only been to the hospital twice in my life. Once when I fell in a bonfire, the second when I broke my ankle. She decides that I'm obviously fucked up and runs an MRI on me. They cost a lot. Turns out that I had a 7-inch 13-centimeter abscess on the inside of my mediastinum. It had ruptured as was pouring pollutants into my body. She came back and turned to the other nurse and said, he has a 13-centimeter abscess on his mediastinum. The other nurse responded with, I didn't know that that could happen. She says, I didn't either. If I had waited a day of 2 more, if most likely would be dead. Anyhow, I had 5 different medical specialist groups come in and run me through their diagnostics. Even had a class come through just to check me out. They never figured out what caused it or even what the infection was, because it was so close to my heart. I just did daily infusions for 3 months and I believe that I'm okay now. CVT here. I had a cat come in with severe renal failure. At least 95% of the kidneys were completely dead and blood was barely circulating through them. The blood toxicity levels were the highest I have ever seen while I've been in practice. It was amazing the cat could even stand on its own. It didn't make it very long, but I still found it amazing. Do you mean it was literally a cat, or are you using some sort of beatnik slang? You have been visited by the healthy spirit of exercise Boye. You will burn all calories today, if you comment "Blessed be the health hound."